With fantasy football season on its way in the next few weeks and the season starting, here's a few quarterbacks I have as sleeper options entering the fantasy drafts in the upcoming weeks. First quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. of the Atlanta Falcons. Penix Jr. last season he was the 8th overall pick in the NFL draft. A lot of people were surprised. Obviously, they drafted him with his Falcons team with Kirk Cousins coming off the Achilles, but Cousins, he just wasn't that good last season, and Penix, he got into game action the last few games of the year, finished up 775 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 11 rush yards, and a rushing touchdown. The thing with Penix, you're not going to get, obviously, the rushing yards from him where he wasn't a big rush, and he also torn his ACL twice in his college career. So an older quarterback, 25 years old already, is Michael Penix. But this is a good situation over there in Atlanta. Obviously, you got Bijan Robinson, already one of the best backs in the backfield, only entering his 3rd season. Drake London, Darnell Mooney at the receiving position is just starters. And then the tight end position, Kyle Pitts, even though he's just been a bust, obviously, where he was a top tight end taken out over the last few seasons in the NFL draft, but he just hasn't panned out now as Kyle Pitts. I don't expect much from him, but Penix, he's a lefty thrower. We don't see a lot of that in the NFL anymore. He's got good zip on the pass, and I think he could have a great sleeper season is Michael Penix, especially where he's going undrafted in some fantasy leagues, or you wait to one of the last rounds of your drafts and go out there and get Penix on your roster. Like I said, they got the weapons in Atlanta. They got a high-powered offense. Penix, as a lefty quarterback, I think that gives him advantage a little bit. Defenses, they're not used to guarding a lefty quarterback. Some people might think it's nothing, but that ball coming in a different direction and all the angles and stuff. So I think Penix, with all that mixed in, and he's on a good Atlanta Falcon team, and they like him, obviously, after even signing Cousins last year, taking him as a top 10 pick. I think this season he could be a nice sleeper for fantasy owners, and there'll be some up games and some down, but for the most part, I think Penix definitely could surprise this season. Next quarterback, Cameron Ward of the Tennessee Titans, number 1 overall pick coming into the year out of the NFL draft is Cameron Ward. Not the greatest of situations, obviously, but there's some potential over there in Tennessee. You got Calvin Ridley, who I think is a talented wide receiver, but bad quarterback play has done him in a little bit over the last couple seasons. And then also as well, Tyler Lockett, a good veteran to have in the locker room, someone who still could run routes even though he's not as quick as he was, and his best years are behind him. At the tight end position, Chigga Kwangwo. And then the backfield, Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. So for the most part, I think this is an okay offense. Obviously not great on paper, and it's not going to be a high-scoring offense, but Cam Ward, we've seen the last couple seasons, rookies take the league by storm and have big seasons. We saw with Jaden Daniels last year, already top 4, top 5 quarterback going in fantasy drafts. And Cam Ward, this guy's a worker, and that's why he was the number 1 pick overall in the NFL draft. With a guy like Shedeur Sanders, yes, he's talented, no doubt about it, but he's not putting in the work ethic or cares as much as Cam Ward. Cam Ward's the first guy in Tennessee Titan facility, and like I said, if he's hungry enough and he wants to prove why he was the number 1 pick, I think Ward, he could work his way into numbers. And I'm not saying he's going to go out there and be a Jaden Daniels, where obviously he was barely drafted or drafted in the last couple rounds of your fantasy draft and then break out. But I think Cam Ward definitely could be a bye-week filler type option, worst case, or even a guy in 14-team leagues as a starter as the year goes on. So like I said, not the weapons aren't great over there in Tennessee, but someone who's hungry, and he has a lot of talent, obviously, being the first overall pick in this draft. Most times the number 1 pick at the quarterback position don't pan out. I think Cam Ward, with the work ethic he's going to put in, and obviously studying tape week in and week out, he's going to go out there and have a good rookie season. Next quarterback, J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings. So last season it looked like McCarthy was going to be the starter before he went down with the injury in training camp. But he's going into an amazing situation with great options in the offense. Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, even though he suspended the first 3 games of the season. Then in the running back room, Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason. So that's a great offense. When you got one of the best receivers in the league in Justin Jefferson, it makes everything easier, no doubt about it, for McCarthy. And also as well, T.J. Hawkinson, one of the better tight ends in the league. So this offense was high-flying in the last season under Kevin O'Connell, and it's going to continue to be once again, even with McCarthy at quarterback. We saw him take Sam Darnold last season, put him in this system, and he threw over 4,000 yards and over 30 touchdowns. So I think McCarthy's got the good arm strength. I know there's been mixed reports coming out of training camp that he hasn't looked good at times, but with these guys in his offense, and he was a highly touted and drafted prospect in last season's draft, I think McCarthy could go out there and he could play pretty well and be a good fantasy option. It wouldn't be surprising to me if he's a top 12, 15 option at the quarterback position, and he's going anywhere from that 11th to the 13th round range. I've seen McCarthy go in mock draft. If I wait on quarterback, I wouldn't be worried about waiting and getting McCarthy on the roster. Like I said, those guys in Jefferson and Hockenson, they can make up for some mistakes, and he could still put up numbers, and he could even run the football a little. It wouldn't be surprising to me this season if we see him get anywhere from 250 to 400 yard range rushing the football as McCarthy. He's got some wheels, and with good weapons in his offense, he's definitely a sleeper quarterback, and someone, like I said, I would be comfortable actually drafting him in a couple leagues maybe if I really wait on quarterback. The next quarterback, Sam Darnold of the Seattle Seahawks. I just mentioned him as the former Viking quarterback. He had a monster season in the Kevin O'Connell offense, 4,319 pass yards, 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 212 rush yards and a rushing touchdown and 4 fumble losses. He ran out of gas towards the end of the year with the Vikings. They got blown out in the last few games. But last year was a great season, and he cashed in now with the Seattle Seahawks. And he's going undrafted in most fantasy leagues as Sam Darnold. Obviously, he's not going to have the same weapons like he did in Minnesota last year with Jefferson, Hockenson, and Addison, who had a breakout season. We're going to Seattle. They got some good players and playmakers, no doubt about it. Jackson Smith-Njigba, Cooper Kupp they signed in the offseason. And then you got the backfield, Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, and the Arroyo at the tight end position for the rookie. So Darnold, obviously, I don't think he's going to put up the numbers like he did last season, but he's definitely shown he's a capable quarterback who could go out there, make plays. I think Darnold, he still could get 3,500 pass yards on the year, maybe 25, 30 touchdowns. He'll throw anywhere from 10, 12 interceptions. But I think as a back-end guy that obviously you got to waste no draft capital, or you could get him in the last round or one of the last rounds of your fantasy drafts. I think Darnold could go out there and once again have a pretty decent season because, like I said, JSN, Cooper Kupp as his 2 wide receivers, good backfield in Walker and Charbonnet, 2 running backs that could catch the football out of the backfield. I'm not saying it's like the Vikings offense, but definitely a capable offense is still putting up points in the final. Quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's going in that 10th, 12th round range as well as Trevor Lawrence, and they got great options in the receiving game. Brian Thomas Jr., who had the monster rookie year, and most of that was with Mac Jones, so imagine what he could do with Trevor Lawrence. And then Travis Hunter, they traded a boatload to move up to number 2 in the NFL draft to get. So Lawrence last season in the games he appeared in, underwhelming numbers and a bad year, 2,045 pass yards, 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 119 rush yards, 3 TDs on the season. So it's just a lost year. Now they got Cohen as the head coach, former offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think this offense, they're going to be fast-paced type offense, and a lot of throwing we saw last season with Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield getting over 4,000 yards throwing and over 40 touchdowns. I'm not saying Lawrence is going to go out there and put those numbers up, but he can't be any worse than he was last season. And now fully healthy, and now adding the Heisman Trophy winner to his offense in Travis Hunter, I think Lawrence could go out there and be a capable quarterback in deeper leagues for fantasy owners. That's a few quarterbacks I have as sleeper options entering the 2025 fantasy football season.